Have you ever wanted something just right away? You just said, like, I want this and I want it to show up right now. Kind of like on that old cartoon, The Jetsons. You want to be able to say something and then a door opens and there it is. I know I have. Or maybe you've always wanted certain things. You've always longed for things. But in your heart of hearts, if really pressed, you believe that it will never actually show up. Has anyone ever said to you, well, trust in the divine timing? Has anyone ever said that to you? And you might have nodded yes. You might have actually wanted to do what I do more than I would like to admit. Want to go get a fork and stick it in their head. Yeah, I believe in divine timing, but the frustration that comes with wanting something in the here and now is, well, frustrating. And that's what we're going to talk about today. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about timing and trusting and the power and really sometimes the frustration that comes with what some people call faith. Hello, I'm Sherry Honeycutt, and I'm super excited that you've taken this 15 minutes or so to listen to this podcast. I've created it. In fact, all of my work is here to help you get what you need to create the beautiful life you've always intended to have. You can learn more about me and my work at sherryhoneycutt.com, CHERIHONEYCUTT. But for now, I'd love for you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, or maybe you're on your walk or your ride to work, wherever you are, settle in, and let's take a minute to clear your mind and clear your clutter so we can clear a path to the life that you've always intended. We all want what we want when we want it. I know that. I always say, I don't want to write a book. I want to have written a book. I'm always wanting to get to the finish line. I'm always wanting to have the very thing. And in fact, sometimes this serves me. Sometimes I can go out and really force and make things appear for myself, which seems pretty awesome. But not always, because I'm not the boss of the world. I am not the boss of the universe. I cannot defy the odds in every single aspect of my life. So I spend a lot of time in frustration. I wonder if you do the same thing. That I can say, oh, I really want this. And then sometimes, and I'm really big on this, I'll make plans. I'll create a plan. I wake up every day and I do the things I'm supposed to do. And it's all fine and good when the things that I'm supposed to do actually come to fruition and bring about the consequences, or maybe I should say the circumstances that I most desire. But what happens when it's not happening, or when it's not happening fast enough? This can be pretty damn depleting. It can be pretty frustrating. And I remember you can hear lots of famous people talking about, yes, my manuscript was turned down 250 times, or I, went on 75,000 auditions before I became the most famous person in the world. And we all get that and we hear it, but we know we're looking at them and go, but eventually you got it. But eventually it came to you, so shut up. Actually, the stories can still be inspiring, but it is sort of frustrating to celebrate when someone's on the other side of having received it, when you are doing what you need to do every day, and it's not showing up. I have been one of those who can point to a lot of things that I've gotten, but I will tell you there's many things on my list that have eluded me. I pulled out some old journals a couple of weeks ago when I was doing a workshop back from like 2005, 2006, and there were some things on that list that I still want. And while I was like, okay, good, I'm a very consistent person. Look, I've been wanting these same things. I did get it was kind of a bummer. I was like, geez, Louise, I'm still kind of chasing it. I always have this vision of like when you're in a pool and you're trying to grab the beach ball that's floating on the top of the water. And as you move the water, the beach ball just gets farther away from you. That's kind of how I felt. I'm like, what? It's eluding me. It's eluding me. And yet I'm showing up. Or am I? I don't know. We could debate it. But I'm here today to talk about the frustration that comes and to understand that sometimes, there could be a lot of things at play here. Sometimes it could be that the things that we want, we don't really want them. And hear me when I say this. In your heart of hearts, down deep in your soul, you might have just been conditioned to want it. Okay? Let me use an example. Somebody might say, oh, society wants me to be super thin. Society wants me to look a certain way. And that may elude you. That may elude you because maybe you're not showing up and doing the work you need to change your body. Or maybe a wiser part of you knows that chasing after that is not who you are. That who you are in the here and now, maybe it's with a few extra pounds or the wrinkles or whatever that you have, is exactly who you are. And your wise self won't allow those things to come to you because your wise self is smarter than the part of you that is chasing after what culture says you should have. That's one possibility. So that there's something you say you want, but you don't want it. There could also be something that it's just not time yet. Let me give you an example about that in my own life. I don't remember what year it was, but I was single and I had decided, okay, I think I'm going to put myself out there in the world to start dating. And I put myself out there and I started going out on dates and I met nice men and I met some doozies, but it was all good. But it was eluding me. Nobody was showing up that was right. You know why? Because, this is my story, because the man that is absolutely perfect for me, he was still married. He wasn't available yet. So in my mind, as I choose to believe about divine timing, the timing was off. Now, I believe I was supposed to show up and start practice dating and start getting really clear about what I wanted. And I started dating a bunch of cookie crumbs. If you've listened to one of my past podcasts, I started dating a bunch of cookie crumbs to get super duper clear on what the whole cookie looked like. But if I had forced it back then, I would have missed out on something amazing. So divine timing. My cookie was not available yet. So now back in those times, I didn't know that. So there was frustration. And there was even part of me who wanted to settle. Okay? But that's where I believe in divine timing, it wasn't time yet. Then there's also the possibility, the reason you're not getting what you want is you're really not doing the work. That you might have too big of a dose of magical thinking. It could be that you believe that you should be able to put it on a vision board or write it on your goal list, but really it will just show up. And I remember saying to friends and clients in the past, and this happened to be around relationships, I'm like, if you don't put yourself out there, the only possibility you're going to have of meeting a man in these situations, but a partner, is if your house is on fire and one of them works for the fire department. No, you have got to get out there and put yourself out in the world. The same thing applies to everything else that you want. You've got to show up. You've got to be in alignment, and you have to frankly do the frackin' work. You can't have garden fresh vegetables in your backyard unless you clear a plot, unless you cultivate the soil, unless you do a little bit of research, unless you plant it, water it, wait for it, nourish it. This is the only way you're going to have a fresh garden, okay? That's just the deal. And so the majority of the things in your life that you want, especially those that are substantive, mean that we have to show up and work for them. And so there may be a part of you that you are relying too much on faith or magic, and you're not willing to show up and do the work, which all of these situations, whether you're not in alignment and you're wanting something and it's not showing up, or you're actually doing the work and it's not showing up, or you're just wanting it and it's still not showing up, can lead to a lot of frustration. And then that frustration in and of itself can deplete us. It can pull us away. It can have us, it can cause us not to continue to show up and do the work. We start telling ourselves a story. Well, I just don't deserve that, or everybody else gets it, or it's never going to come into being, blah, 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 blah. So that frustration, because it can feel like a negative emotion, can begin to result in that we actually have negative energy around the very thing that we want. So here's the deal. How do we step into a place of where we're really in alignment and that we're willing to tolerate a skosh of frustration because things are not in our, we don't get to decide, but also we maintain the energy to be able to show up? Well, this is what I've been calling in the last few podcasts tension. This is where it is this fine little sweet spot between our understanding in our heart of hearts that we're not the boss of everything, but also to understand that how we show up every day plays an immense role in getting the life we want. It's the sweet spot between praying and moving your feet. You've heard that old Amish adage that says, pray and move your feet. It means have faith, but show up and do the work. So how do you know when you're in the sweet spot? Well, that's the $64,000 question. But I can tell you how I know it. It is when I know that there is this little zingy zing feeling in my heart. Zingy zing, look it up, it's a thing. No, it's not. It's when I have this little feeling in my heart where I know that I've got energy for what I'm doing, but I also have surrendered, there's the word, surrendered enough to know I ain't the boss. Okay? And that is this place of clarity. And the only way I can describe it is that I'm not awash in negative emotion. I'm not awash in overrunning and trying to do and force the world, which means I'm trying to be the boss of everything. I'm also not awash in resignation of it'll never come to me. That I'm in this zingy place of going, it's coming. I don't know when. I don't know how, and I'm going to do my part, but it's coming, and then I do the work. And I'm going to invite you to think of a time when you might have been in what we would call the zone. And I'm trusting that on some level, all of you as listeners have had some example of where you were in the zone. You knew you were going to ace the test, or you're a runner and you were just in that place of, I got this. You were doing a presentation and you knew you were going to nail it. That's that zingy zing feeling in your heart. And that's what I'm calling tension. It's a place where you have to both pray, like I said, pray and move your feet. And when you're in that zony place, the overarching emotion or feeling is not negative. There might be a little bit of I'm uncertain, but it doesn't manifest into this huge, ginormous emotion that will eat you up. Okay, that's how you know you're more in the zone, where the overarching feeling, the feeling that you're in, is one of anticipation. There's a bit of peaceful surrender and a little bit of energy for what you have to do. It's a combination, I like that, of energy and surrender. It's a place where you're buzzing and you're calm at the same time. That's how I know when I'm in an alignment. Okay, and we all toss around this word alignment all the time. But alignment means that I am showing up to do the pieces that I need to do, but also understanding that there might be this thing called divine timing, and that things will come to you as you show up and do the work. Okay? So I can give you countless stories. I will tell you one real quick one. This is years ago in 2000, and I don't know, it doesn't matter. But my office was frustrating to me. I was frustrated, and it was cluttered, and it was messy. And I said to a friend, I'm going to give myself a month, and then this office has got to be back in shape. I needed to be cleaned up, and I wanted to get painted. And at the time it was January the 3rd or 4th or something like that. And she looked at me and she said, "Why are you giving yourself permission to be miserable for a whole month?" And I remember this clearly. It happened to be a Tuesday. She said, "Why can't you commit to having that done by Friday?" And I looked at her like I wanted to stick a fork in her head. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I cannot clean my office," it was a wreck, "and paint it by Friday." And she just looked at me and she said, "Why are you giving yourself a whole month to be miserable?" And she didn't let up. And so I made a commitment, for whatever reason, that I would show up for that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to clean and paint my office. Well, this is true story here. On Wednesday, my friend Moni Hill, who I will tag in this podcast, my friend Moni Hill, my memory has called me and she said something like, "I think I need to help you. Do you want me to help you paint your office?" Swear. She said, "Do you want me to help you paint your office?" And I said, "Well, yes." And so for the next few days, Moni came over and painted my office. And while she painted it, I sat there and organized files and cleaned it up. And did you know my office was done by Friday? There was this sense of alignment. I showed up, I said I was committed, and then something I would have never even known to ask for showed up on the other end of the phone. And it was that alignment that happened, that praying and moving my feet, saying I would show up, and then deciding to no longer sit in the frustration. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to encourage you to remember times when you were in that zingy zing zony place and begin to replicate that in other areas of your life where you might be stuck. Really ask yourself, are you just trusting too much that what you want is going to show up without your work? Or are you working really hard and pushing it away because you really don't have faith that it will? That's what I want you to take a look at over the next week and think about that, okay? Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this podcast. I hope that it's brought you a couple of pearls or something that you can put into practice today to help you create the life that you've always intended. And I would love for you to go to sherryhoneycutt.com. I've got a few freebies there and some things to get you started. I also love to be passed around. I want this podcast to grow. I want to be able to put my gifts and thoughts and ideas out into the world and be of service. So please share me with the people that you know. And if you are ready to change the trajectory of your life, that's a big word. If you're ready to change the trajectory of your life, I would love for you to go online and let's start a coaching conversation. And if you enter in podcast 20 into the promo code, you'll get 20% off your very first coaching session. Again, that's at sherryhoneycutt.com. And as always, I want you to remember this. You can have a beautiful life. You just have to clear your mind and clear your clutter so you can clear a path to the life that you've always intended. Until next time.